I have returned from my little hiatus from Destiny 2 because honestly, there's still a lot of things I want to test out in this game in regards to builds because I think there's a lot of potential even though the game is kind of dead right now. Now, outside of the new Wicked Implement Exotic Sky Rifle, you know, the one we've been waiting for a couple of weeks, which I will be doing a video on. In this video in particular, I wanted to go back into the Arc subclass for the Warlock and pair that up with the Crown of Tempests because there is a lot of cool synergy that we could get with the artifact this season. So here's the exotic, the Crown of Tempests. It actually has a couple ornaments that we could take advantage of. There's this one, there's a hive theme one, and then there's like this fallen tech theme one, which I really like. But it's perk, Conduction Tines, Arc Ability or Jolt Final Blows, increase the recharge rate of your Arc abilities, and extend the duration of Storm Trance. Now, like I said, we want to take advantage of certain things on the artifact here. So first up, I'd recommend looking into authorized mods Arc and Melee. Again, this will reduce the armor energy cost for both of these for Arc weapons and just Melee mods. So we can put on other mods that potentially cost more. So this is going to help us out in general. Next up, for the next three, I'd recommend these ones. Thunderous Retort, gain bonus arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified, lasts until the end of the super activation. So in this case, our Storm Trance will have more damage while we're amplified, which amplified we're going to have almost constantly. Now, Electric Armor, we're going to gain damage resistance while amplified. This does stack on top of that tier 10 100 resilience. Then lastly, I would recommend Shock and Awe, Arc Final Blows. While you're amplified, summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. Again, Arc Final Blows, this can be from your abilities or your weapons. So for example, the Arc Soul can actually proc Shock and Awe, hilariously enough. So it turns your Arc Soul into like a little explosion grenade, which is hilarious. Now, these next two perks aren't absolutely necessary, but you can look into them, test it out for yourself. So we have Amped Up, stay amplified longer while you have an Arc subclass equipped. And then last thing, Lightning Strikes twice. After throwing an Arc Grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc Final Blows, extend the duration of this benefit. Granted, we're going to have our abilities very quickly with this build in general, so I don't find that you need this perk, but if you want it, go for it. Next, let's go over what I'm using under the Stormcaller Warlock subclass. For the super, obviously we want to do Storm Trance so we can take advantage of the perk on the helmet that's going to allow us to have it last longer. Again, this is going to be really good for ad clear. If you did want to use Chaos Reach, you can. The only bonus is that you do get the super faster like you would with Storm Trance, but it doesn't make the super last longer. That's why we're opting for Storm Trance. For abilities, I'm going to go with the Healing Rift. You can use whatever movement ability you want. I like Burst Glide. For the melee, I'm using a Ball Lightning. Again, you launch it and it basically has a lightning strike down, and when you're amplified, it actually does additional strikes before detonating, which is pretty cool. And then for the grenade, I am using the Pulse Grenade. For our aspects, for the first one, we have Electrostatic Mine. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Ionic Trace, and then collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified. So as long as we're getting kills with our abilities, we're going to be amplified almost all the time. And also, when we collect those Ionic Traces, we're going to get ability energy back on top of the bonuses from Crown of Tempest. Secondly, Arc Soul. Cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies can pass through your Rift to get an Arc Soul. Your Rift charges faster when allies are near. While amplified, your Arc Soul are supercharged and gain an increased fire rate, so pretty much makes them even stronger. Next up, for our fragments, I'm going to go with Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, plus 10 to strength. Again, just in general damage resistance. Next, Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. Again, we're going to be amplified a lot, and if we can create more orbs of power for extra bonuses for ourselves and teammates, that's going to be good. Next up, Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades have extended duration, which means our pulse grenade is going to last longer. And then lastly, we have Spark of Shock. Your arc grenades jolt targets. That is on -10 to discipline, but again, that extra jolt creates an Ionic Trace, which again comes from Electrostatic Mine, and jolting targets in general will stun Overload Champions, so we do have that option with the grenade. Next, for our armor mods. On the helmet here, I'm going with Hands-On, gain bonus super energy on melee kills. Then I'm also using Dynamo, reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. And then lastly, we have Font of Wisdom. Again, you gain bonus to intellect when you have any armor charge, and your armor charges decay over time. Essentially, with armor charges, if you collect an orb of power, you will gain an armor charge. Minimum, you can have 3 armor charges. With any of these blue mods, it puts a timer on the armor charge of 10 seconds. Keep that in mind. Plus, with any of these blue mods that give you a bonus to a stat, it actually gives a plus 30 bonus for the first mod you have on. If you have 2, it gives a plus 50. And if you decide to put 3 on, it is plus 60. So I'm just going to go with the first one. So I get the plus 30 to my intellect. So my intellect is 70 right now. So once I gain an armor charge, it'll actually bump it up to 100, which means I will have max intellect as long as I have an armor charge stored in, my Guardian. On the gauntlets here, I'm using Momentum Transfer and Impact Induction, so when I cause damage with my grenade and my melee, I get cooldowns for both of those respectively, so it kind of works with each other, which is really nice. And then I'm also going with Font of Focus, similar to the one on the helmet here, Font of Wisdom. Basically, you gain bonus to discipline while you have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. So now my discipline goes from 70 to 100 when I have an armor charge. On the chest piece, you can honestly rock any combination of resistance and reserve mods that you would like. I personally like having the arc reserve since I'm going to be using arc weapons. Again, this is going to increase the amount of ammo you can carry for arc weapons. If you want to use all resistant mods here, that's totally fine. Doesn't really matter. Just use what you like here. Next up on our boots, I'm using Arc Weapon Surge. Your arc weapons gain a small bonus to damage when you have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Like I said, this is a blue mod, so it does work in tandem with those stat bonus mods that I'm using on the helmet and the gauntlets. It's just with this, we get bonus damage as long as we have an armor charge on, which is really good. Next up, Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a small amount of energy to your ability with the least energy. If you did want to switch this out for recuperation, that's totally fine. Replenishes health each time you pick up an Orb of Power. Again, if you're having trouble surviving, you're going to be creating plenty of orbs with this build, so this is going to help you out. Then lastly, this is a new mod that came with Season of the Deep, Elemental Charge. Collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, Void Breach, or destroying a Stray Entangle has an escalating chance to give you an armor charge. We're going to be creating plenty of Ionic Traces, so that escalating chance pretty much makes it guaranteed we're going to get an armor charge whenever we collect an Ionic Trace. And lastly on the class side, I'm using Outreach and Bomber, so when I use my class ability, it's going to give me a cooldown on my grenade and my melee. And then another new mod that came in, Powerful Attraction, automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. So when I cast that Healing Rift that I'm also going to get Arc Souls with, I'm also going to collect any of those orbs of power near me, so I'm going to gain armor charges and the rest of the bonuses that I mentioned on the armor. Now for stats for you to focus on, first up, Resilience. We talk about this every video. Try to have tier 10 100 Resilience. It's going to give you a 30% damage reduction in a PvE. So no matter what you're doing, you're going to have good survivability just with that. And then I would focus on, it's kind of tough because with recovery is actually tied to your class ability cooldown. Now with this build in particular, you're going to get that class ability back very quickly, so you can use that Healing Rift to gain Arc Souls. So you're going to get it back pretty easily, especially with Ionic Traces and multiple ways to get your abilities back. You don't necessarily need to focus on recovery, but if you did want to, you can. Again, recovery also determines how fast you get your health and your shields back. Now, the other three that I'd focus on personally is Discipline, Intellect, and Strength. Again, Discipline is tied to Grenade, Intellect is tied to your Super, and Strength is tied to your Melee. And again, like I said, I have 70 on Discipline and 70 on Intellect, so whenever I have an armor charge, those automatically get bumped up to 100 for the duration I have my armor charges. So those are maxed out. Again, with my Strength, I will have my melee back fairly quickly, and with Crown of Tempest, this is just going to help with ability regeneration in general, so having those abilities back even faster is just going to help out with this build. Now for your weapon options, there really isn't anything in particular you need to use here outside of Arc Weapons, because we do want to take advantage of Arc Reserves and Arc Weapon Surge. Again, if you have an Arc Heavy weapon that you really like using, you know, your Hothead, you know, Terminus Horizon, I have Target Lock Triple Tap, this thing's a beast, you know, any Arc weapon that you want to use in the heavy slot, that's totally fine. But for our energy slot, we do have a couple options. So you can find weapons that can come with Bolt Shot. Reloading this weapon after defeating a target overcharges this weapon for a short period of time, causing it to jolt on its next hit. Again, it can stun overload champions, plus just be really good for ad control in general, so that's going to be good. Now, two other weapons you can look into using. First up being Delicate Tomb. This thing is very good on the Warlock because you can take advantage of Ionic Traces. So fires a horizontal spread when shot from the hip. Final blows with this weapon have a chance to generate Ionic Traces. Powerful foes and opposing guardians always generate Ionic Traces. Also comes with Fluted Barrel, Liquid Coils, and then Short Action Stock. But this one, Tempest Cascade, collecting an Ionic Trace overcharges its weapon's next shot, jolting targets on hit. So again, we do get that jolt factor here. And if you get the Catalyst and the Masterwork done, collecting Ionic Trace partially reloads the magazine from reserve. So we do get a lot of bonuses just from using Ionic Traces with this fusion rifle. And then lastly, from this season, you can look into using Centrifuge. You know, sliding, sprinting, and firing this weapon builds up a temporary electrostatic charge, increasing range and reload speed. Final blows with high charge cause explosions, and maximum charge explosions blind targets. And if you didn't know, blinding targets actually stuns unstoppable champions, so keep that in mind. We also have Corkscrew Rifling, Pen and Mag, and then Hand Laid Stock. Then we also have Regenerative Motion. Sprinting gradually reloads this weapon, so as long as you're moving, it will reload itself. And if you get the Catalyst, what's really cool, as long as you're amplified, it actually increases the meter here. That will allow you to have the increased range, reload speed, and explosions. If you got through all that and you're still a little confused about how this build works, I'm going to break it down for you as simple as I can. But essentially, as long as you are getting arc ability kills and just jolt kills with your weapons or whatever, you will have a very fast ability cooldown for your healing rift for Arc Souls, your grenade, your melee, also a very fast cooldown for your super, and an extended duration for the Storm Trance, which is going to be really good for ad clear. Like I said, Crown of Tempests is going to allow us to have a very fast cooldown for all of our abilities and a longer super duration with the subclass in general, with Electrostatic Mind. Anytime we get kills with our abilities, that is also going to create Ionic Traces. When we collect Ionic Traces, it's going to give us a faster cooldown for those abilities. Again, every time we pop our healing rift, we're going to have Arc Soul. Arc Soul, while amplified, increases its fire rate, does more damage. Again, we're going to be amplified almost all the time because we're going to be creating Ionic Traces with our abilities. Arc Soul counts as an ability as well, so those are also going to create Ionic Traces, which is going to be hilarious enough. Again, with our Pulse Grenade, it's going to last longer because of Spark of Magnitude and Jolt targets as well with Spark of Shock. Again, while we're amplified, we're going to be creating Orbs of Power as long as we're getting rapid defeats. Spark of Amplitude's kicking in, plus we get more damage resistance with Spark of Resistance. With the artifact, the main thing is that when we're amplified, we're going to gain more damage resistance, and our super is going to do even more damage. Plus, with Shock and Awe, anytime we have an Arc Final Blow, whether it's from our abilities or our weapons, it is going to summon that burst of lightning that's going to jolt targets. And again, like I said, that can be from your weapons, your abilities, the Arc Soul, whatever it is. You're going to have even better ad clear, which is just going to be hilarious. And with our armor mods, it just gets even more broken. So as long as we have an armor charge, whether we pick up an Orb of Power, we gain it through Powerful Attraction while using our healing rift, or from Ionic Traces with Elemental Charge. Again, that has an escalating chance of giving us an armor charge. A couple different things are going to happen. Again, Font of Wisdom is going to kick in, giving us a plus 30 to Intellect. Mine's already 72, so that means it gets bumped up to 102, so now I have the fastest cooldown for my Intellect. Same thing with Font of Focus. Again, that's going to bump my Grenade stat up to 100, so now I have the fastest cooldown I can for my Grenade, plus Arc Weapon Surge kicking in, so now I will have that bonus damage for my Arc Weapons. And as long as I have 3 armor charges, each lasting 10 seconds, that's going to be 30 seconds that all of those bonuses are going to last, so I will constantly have those as long as I have armor charges. All the other stuff with the helmet, again, hands-on and dynamo, as long as I get melee kills and use my class ability near targets, again, that healing rift, I'm going to get bonus super energy, which I'm already going to get fairly fast anyway. On the gauntlets, momentum transfer and impact induction, as long as I do damage with my grenade and melee, I get those back even faster. On the boots, picking up an Orb of Power, whether it's, Orbs of Restoration, giving me even more ability energy, or recuperation, giving me healing whenever I pick up an Orb of Power, that's going to be great. And then lastly, with Bomber and Outreach on the class item, whenever I use that healing rift, I get bonuses to my melee and my grenade energy. Essentially, I'm never going to run out of abilities. I'm never going to run out of Ionic Traces. I'm never going to be not amplified, and I'm always going to have my abilities, and my super is going to last longer and do even more damage. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my updated Crown of Tempests Arc Warlock build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I'm actually going to pin the dim link at the top of the comments, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using, from armor mods to the subclass, artifact perks, all that fantastic stuff, again, you can copy all that and test it out for yourself, and let me know what you guys think. If you go in and test and you're like, hey, I actually like using this better, this combination is actually really cool, you should definitely check it out. Let me know. I'm willing to hear you out and testing stuff out in this game all the time. But if you guys like what you saw, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another build video here on the channel. We also live stream on YouTube a couple days a week, so if you do want to tune into that, that would be fantastic. And if you want to be updated, be sure to follow me on Twitter at ItsDaveTV. Again, I always tweet out when I'm going live, plus other content updates, whether it's gaming, tech, or anime. And then lastly, be sure to join my Discord. That link will be in the description. Again, we are talking about Destiny 2 and a variety of other games, plus PC tech, anime, and more. Lastly, if you didn't know, we have some pretty exclusive things here on the channel. One of those things being memberships. If you don't know what a membership is essentially like a Twitch subscription. Again, it's just another way to support me here on the channel so I can continue making this content for you guys. Again, it's going to give you access to the exclusive emotes, the monthly badges, and some other cool things here on the channel. So if you just want some more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and that will give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.